90 days, 680 nights.
وسهلا بكل الذين ينضموا للاستماع إلى راديو بلدي أول راديو عربي أمريكي ويعنى بقضايا العرب في المهجر. برامجنا في راديو بلدي كل يوم جمعة من 8 وحتى 9 صباحا مع ليلى الحسيني في بث حي ومباشر عبر wnzk راديو 690 AM. صباح الخير بلدي، صباح الخير لكل مستمعينا.
Welcome to Radio Baladi, the first Arab, Middle Eastern and American simulcast radio show. Radio Baladi is broadcast every Friday morning on wnzk 690 AM from 8 until 9 Eastern Time on Good Morning Michigan with Layla Al-Husseini. Our call-in number 248-557-3300. And now, stay tuned for the best radio talk show on Arab and American issues with your host, Layla Al-Husseini.
This is Dr. Sahar Khamis. Join me on the third Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be discussing some of the most important current political, economic, and social issues in my program, The Bridge. On Radio Baladi, on America's Voice of the Arabs, WNZK 690 AM and WDMV 700 AM. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to a new show on U.S. Arab Radio, Radio Baladi. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Khamis. With me this morning are two prominent journalists, Ms. Shahira Amin and Ms. Tracey Shelton, discussing a very important topic: women breaking news and covering crisis in a changing region. As the events in the Arab region rapidly evolve and dramatically unfold, journalists have been gasping to keep up with them. While women have captured the world's attention due to their active political involvement in the Arab Spring, little attention has been paid to women who have been playing an equally critical role through covering the ongoing news in this volatile region and reporting on it to the rest of the world. Therefore, it is especially important to shed light on women journalists, whether Arab or Western, behind the camera or in front of the camera, who have been breaking news and covering crisis in this important region, oftentimes with high risks to themselves. This requires allowing them to tell their own stories in their own words. With me this morning discussing this topic is Ms. Shahira Amin, an award-winning veteran Egyptian journalist who has an impressive professional career working with various prestigious organizations in the Arab world and internationally, including CNN, BBC Radio, Nile TV, Daily News Egypt, an independent English language newspaper, Index on Censorship, RIA Novosti, the Russian news agency, and Anba Moscow in Arabic, as well as UN Women, UNICEF, and ILO. Recently, she has been reporting and commenting extensively on the myriad of problems facing post-revolutionary Egypt. My second guest, Ms. Tracey Shelton, is a prominent journalist who has been working in the Middle East and North African conflict zones since 2009. Currently, she is based in Syria with stints in Libya and Iraq, and she is now a senior correspondent for the Boston-based international news group Global Post. Working across platforms as a writer, photographer, and multimedia producer, her work gained worldwide attention during coverage of Muammar Gaddafi's capture in Sirte, Libya, and frontline clashes during the Syrian conflict in Aleppo. Her articles, photographs, and video news coverage have also been featured in Time magazine, the Sydney Morning Herald, Al Jazeera, BBC, CNN, and many other channels, websites, and publications, earning her many prestigious professional awards. Stay tuned with us. We're going to start our discussion with these prominent journalists right after this commercial break.
When it comes to reproductive medicine, IVF Michigan Fertility Centers are the recognized leaders. With locations in Bloomfield Hills and 5 other cities in Michigan and Ohio, IVF has experts in all aspects of the field. As a founding member of IVF Michigan Fertility Centers, Dr. Nicholas Shama is one of the leading reproductive endocrinologists in Michigan and Ohio. Dr. Shama has performed over 10,000 IVF cases and has helped thousands of couples fulfill their dreams of parenthood. American board certified in both obstetrics and gynecology and reproductive endocrinology and infertility, Dr. Nicholas Shama is a very caring, compassionate, expert physician that understands not only the medical but also the emotional toil of infertility on his patients. When it's time, get personalized care from Dr. Nicholas Shama at IVF Michigan Fertility Centers in Michigan and Ohio. Call toll-free 855-952-9600, 852-9600. The Rama Relief Foundation provides humanitarian aid into areas inside of war-torn Syria, as well as aid to the refugees who have fled to the neighboring countries in the Middle East. The foundation offers food baskets, container shipment, mental health, education, soup kitchens, and more. Go to ramarelief.org or call 248-990-4247. Any donation amount made to Rama will go to sustaining many lives. Call now 248-990-4247.
Ziyad brand. Quality products from our family to yours. Ziyad Brothers Importing offers the finest quality products, including brands like Sultan, Kraft, Nestle, Hook, Rico Picon, Dana, and many more. Ask your retailer to carry these fine products because you deserve the very best. For more information, visit our website at www.ziyad.com. That's www.ziyad.com. Ziyad, quality products from our family to yours.
Life for Relief and Development is a nonprofit charity that has been providing humanitarian aid and development to people and communities regardless of race, color, religion, or cultural background for over 22 years. When disaster occurs here or around the world, Life rushes to provide food, medical aid, and shelter to those in need. Life also has development projects that provide medical relief, water purification, educational programs, relief for orphans, and much more. Your help and support can greatly improve these efforts. All donations are tax deductible. For more information, please visit our website at lifeusa.org or call 248-424-7493. That's lifeusa.org, 248-424-7493.
This is Dr. Sahar Khamis. Join me on the third Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be discussing some of the most important current political, economic, and social issues in my program, The Bridge. On Radio Baladi, on America's Voice of the Arabs, WNZK 690 AM and WDMV 700 AM. Good morning and welcome, everybody. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Khamis. Welcome to our show this morning on Radio Baladi, and with me today, two prominent journalists, Ms. Shahira Amin and Ms. Tracey Shelton, discussing a very important topic, which is women breaking news and making headlines and covering crisis in the Arab region. I will start with you, Ms. Shahira Amin, and thank you very much for joining us this morning. I know how busy you are. I think this will be an opportunity for you guys to tell your stories to the world rather than telling the world about important stories. So we would like to start with just giving our listeners this morning a brief idea about your own journey as a journalist, as a media person. If you can just let us know how you really started to be interested in this job. How did it start, ending with where you are right now, briefly, just an idea for our listeners, please.
I started off studying economics at the American University in Cairo, and then I got married while at college and decided I wanted a part-time job. So I joined Abu Dhabi Radio, FM radio, as a radio DJ. I got into the field quite by chance, and I've never looked back since. I started off as a broadcaster on radio, then I did print journalism, then television, and once you get into the media, then, you know, you can't ever think of any other career, because this is a very challenging job, very exciting. You know, you're in the middle of where it's all happening, and I was very fortunate in that I covered the uprising in my country back in 2011, and since then, the last 3 years have been very intense, but very challenging as well, and history is being made in my country, and I'm able to report it to the world. So, you know, I would never want to do anything else. I'm really very fortunate to be in the midst of it all, Dr. Khamis.
Absolutely, and we're fortunate to have such an experienced, you know, journalist and media person like yourself covering the news and also joining us this morning. And I'd like to move on to Ms. Tracey Shelton, if you can also give us a brief idea about your journey as a media person, as a journalist. Also, how did your interest in this start, and your interest in the region as well? I know that you are originally from Australia, so I want to know what triggered your interest in covering the Middle East and Africa, you know, war zones and conflict zones, please.
Yes, well, for me, it was never really a plan. It just kind of happened. I was in Cambodia originally and working in an orphanage, and I started photography there and ended up working for newspapers and just loved it. And beyond through that, I started writing and moved into video. I covered some conflict in Cambodia, between Cambodia and Thailand, and it sort of progressed from there. I started working in other conflict zones, and by the time I got to the Middle East, I just really loved it here, and it's such an important place to cover. So, yeah, so I've stayed and been working here the last 4 years.
Excellent, excellent. And as I can tell also from the bios of both of you, actually, you've played different roles and have been to different places and covered different areas and from different angles. And Ms. Shahira, sometimes as a journalist, as a media person, you have to wear different hats. You have to do different things, different roles, multiple functions while covering your own news or doing your own job. If you can talk a little bit about some of the different roles and different hats that you had to put on while doing your job as a media person and as a commentator for the media, that would be great.
If you ask me, you know, what do you do today, I would tell you that I'm an activist for women's rights. And most people think that when you're a journalist, you have to be absolutely neutral, objective, and to just report the facts. But when you're covering news in your own country, you can't help but be an activist as well, you know, and I really believe in the slogan that says that one begins where the other one leaves off. So you can be a journalist and an activist at the same time by, you know, because you decide what are the important stories that you want to tell, and you want to effect change, and you can do that as a journalist. You can make a difference simply by reporting the facts and by, you know, highlighting what needs to be known. You decide for the public what is important.
This is a very important point, Ms. Shahira, and thank you for bringing it up, because actually I've been doing some interviews with journalists just like yourself who also describe themselves as activists. Very interestingly, they saw this crossover between the roles as journalists and the roles as activists as well, which is very interesting. So would you like to just take this opportunity to maybe comment a little bit on women who have been actually involved in the politics of Egypt and the region largely, how they have been contributing to reshaping the historical, events and the political and social landscape in the region?
I think the January 2011 uprising was a turning point, because before then, people thought of women in the Middle East as being submissive and weak. And, you know, when the uprising broke out, we saw women in Tahrir shoulder to shoulder with the men, not just in their traditional roles, you know, distributing food and taking care of the wounded, but also leading the chants at times with men chanting behind them. And we thought that this would be a turning point, because women made themselves heard. They expressed their grievances. And, you know, we were very disappointed that after the uprising to find women pushed back, sidelined and marginalized. When the SCAF, the Supreme Council of the Armed Forces, formed a committee, it was a committee of wise men to plan the way ahead for Egypt. And there was not one single woman on that committee. That was the first disappointment. Another disappointment was the surge in sexual violence against women when CBS reporter Lara Logan was assaulted in the square on the 11th of February, the day Mubarak stepped down. That was the first of a series of mob attacks. So women have had it hard, but I'm very happy to tell you the good news that they're out there still expressing themselves, still making their voices heard, and still fighting for their rights. That is the important change.
Yes, definitely. They're not deterred and they're not intimidated by all, the violence and all the, maybe setbacks and some of the losses that they have had, or some of the hardships, as you mentioned, did not deter them from continuing their struggle, which is indeed very important. And Tracey, if I was to move to you and also ask you the same question, I've seen from your bio that you have been wearing different hats. You have been a journalist, you have been also a videographer, you've been doing videos, you've been doing documentaries and taking photographs. Would you like to talk a little bit about this, wearing different hats and playing multiple roles in your own right?
Yeah, well, as far as photography, writing, video, I find it's fantastic to have all these different things to fall back on, because sometimes you go to a place and you have a plan and you have this great video planned out and you get there and you can't use a camera. No one will be on camera, no one will let you, it's too dangerous to pull out a camera. So to be able to then turn around and say, okay, no problem, I'll put it away, I'll get my notebook, and still write a story and describe it. And it's just great to be able to change around with different things. If it's not visual, you can write the story. If it turns out to be much more visual than you thought, it can make a fantastic video. So to be able to just change and do that yourself, yeah, it's really good, and it's great to be able to offer that package as well with the photos and stories and really cover a subject in whatever way is best.
And I assume that when you do all of these different things, like covering it with video and also with photographs and being a journalist, maybe it really adds something to the mix, adds something of value or something of different dimensions to the news coverage that you are giving your own, readers and your own people who look at your photos and look at your videos. They must really get something out of this combination of different types of journalism and different types of media production.
Yeah, I think the best thing is that you have that option to, if you only have one medium, then you're stuck in that one medium, and even if it's not the best way to tell the story, you don't have another choice. But when you have the options, you can always choose the best way to tell the story and to get it across in a way that's really people are really going to understand.
Absolutely, and I think that when you're covering something as important and as massive as the Arab Spring, the capture of Gaddafi that we're going to come back to after the commercial break, and also very important events related to the Syrian crisis, this kind of combination of different arts and different techniques must be indeed very helpful. And I've seen that some of your documentaries actually and videos have actually won awards. Would you like to talk a little bit about this?
Yes, I have won a few awards. The first one was actually for coverage of Gaddafi's capture in Libya. That was in 2011, and then last year also the Photo of the Year award I got for some of my work in Aleppo, and the George Polk Award, which was a fantastic honour for a series of videos also that I had filmed in Aleppo in Syria.
Excellent, very impressive. And we'll come back to the nice topic of awards with Ms. Shahira Amin right after this commercial break. Stay tuned, please.
When you're looking for the best in optical care, Dr. Imad Nakash is your doctor to see. With years of experience and thousands of successful procedures performed, you can trust your eyes to Dr. Imad Nakash. See Dr. Imad Nakash and his professional staff for your eye care needs. There's 2 locations to serve you. In Hazel Park, call 248-336-3937. 248-336-3937. In Rochester Hills, call 248-299-3937. That's 248-299-3937.
Ziyad brand. Quality products from our family to yours. Ziyad Brothers Importing offers the finest quality products, including brands like Sultan, Kraft, Nestle, Hook, Rico Picon, Dana, and many more. Ask your retailer to carry these fine products because you deserve the very best. For more information, visit our website at www.ziyad.com. That's www.ziyad.com. Ziyad, quality products from our family to yours.
Life for Relief and Development is a nonprofit charity that has been providing humanitarian aid and development to people and communities regardless of race, color, religion, or cultural background for over 22 years. When disaster occurs here or around the world, Life rushes to provide food, medical aid, and shelter to those in need. Life also has development projects that provide medical relief, water purification, educational programs, relief for orphans, and much more. Your help and support can greatly improve these efforts. All donations are tax deductible. For more information, please visit our website at lifeusa.org or call 248-424-7493. That's lifeusa.org, 248-424-7493.
Are you going to start a restaurant or grocery store soon? Do you need floor plans and designs? Call Naji Abood at 734-744-9796. Do you want to buy kitchen and restaurant equipment at discount prices? Call Naji Abood now, 734-744-9796. New Concept Products and Design, the trademark of kitchen equipment. 5% discount on all purchases of $75,000 or more. New Concept Products and Design, new location, 31185 Schoolcraft in Livonia. Learn more at www.newconceptproducts.com. Call Naji Abood, 734-744-9796.
This is Dr. Sahar Khamis. Join me on the third Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be discussing some of the most important current political, economic, and social issues in my program, The Bridge. On Radio Baladi, on America's Voice of the Arabs, WNZK 690 AM and WDMV 700 AM. Welcome back, everybody. We're discussing today women breaking news and covering crisis in the Arab region. And with me this morning are two experienced professional journalists, Ms. Shahira Amin and Ms. Tracey Shelton, discussing this important topic, really covering the crisis in the Arab region. And Ms. Shahira Amin, I'd like to come back to the topic of awards. And we were talking about awards before leaving for our commercial break. I'd like you to give our listeners an idea about some of the most important awards that you actually won in your own career as
well, it's wonderful when you get an award because it's really great when you get an award because you feel recognized, that your efforts are being recognized. And I want to salute Tracey for her courage. I think it's incredibly brave for a foreigner, to be in the middle of the conflict and out there, covering and reporting at a time when the level of xenophobia is especially high. So I salute Tracey. As for my awards, well, the first award I won was back in 2008 for my stories on female genital mutilation. I was recognized by UNICEF and then by the National Council for Childhood here in Egypt. They thanked me, saying that I helped bring about the law criminalizing female genital mutilation. So I really am very, very proud of that award. My next award was for a story I broke the story on the virginity tests that the military performed on female protesters in May 2011. I think I won the award from Spain. It's the Juan Anguita Parado Award from Cordoba University. Juan Parado was a Spanish journalist who died covering the war in Iraq, and his family, started the award in his name. So I won that for the story on the virginity tests. And then I won several awards for my stance during the uprising when I quit state-run Nile TV because of their biased coverage of the uprising. They were not covering Tahrir, and I was told to take a camera and go cover the pro-Mubarak rallies instead. So I refused and I resigned because I felt, that history was being made and I had a responsibility to tell the world what was actually happening in Tahrir. I won the Homes of the Year award from Sweden. Recently, I have been awarded the Global Thinkers Forum Excellence for Promoting Gender Equity Award in Athens, Greece. And my last award was from Turkey as a peace envoy, and I'm really proud of that award. That was just last week in Istanbul.
Excellent. This is very prestigious, and congratulations on your many awards and many achievements. And I'd like to touch upon an important point, actually, Ms. Shahira, that you mentioned, which is, what happened when you actually decided to quit your job with Nile TV and why you took this position and what happened. And this brings me to the topic of high risks that you as women journalists actually face while doing your own job and carrying out your own responsibilities in covering the news. Maybe many people may not be aware of some of the high risks that might come with that, whether professionally, personally, some of the high risks that you have faced while doing your own job as a journalist and as a media person. Would you like to elaborate a little bit on this in terms of the risks that came along with doing your own job as a media person and as a journalist?
I actually thought it would be the end of my career, but I took the decision because I couldn't deceive the public, and I felt I would have the blood of those who died on my hands. So, there was no question about it. It was very clear that I had to walk out because of the censorship at my TV station. And I actually thought that all my colleagues would do likewise, would follow in my footsteps and resign because of the censorship. But it didn't happen. But I never thought of the risks at the time. I just thought, this is what I have to do, and I did it. And there are no regrets. I actually am very proud of the stance that I took. But of course, it did come with a lot of risk because Mubarak was still in power, and they put my name on a list of people not allowed to travel until I'm investigated. And once Mubarak stepped down, I had to go and argue with them and tell them, you should be punishing those that deceive the public, not those that that distance themselves from the lies. And my name was removed from the list. I feel that you have to do what you have to do the right thing, and everything will fall into place. I've been very fortunate. The fact that I'm still here to tell the story is incredibly lucky for me.
And if I was to take this a step further and actually talk about, the ongoing or current situation in Egypt now, after the events that unfolded in, on June 30th, 2013, and the removal of Morsi from power in what has been described by some as a military coup and by others as a revolution, and by many as a state of really confusion in terms of what happened and why it happened. Do you see now some kind of backlash in terms of the general freedom of expression or freedom of the press in Egypt, as an experienced journalist who has been working on this important topic? Just quickly, what would be your assessment of the status of freedom of expression right now and freedom of the press in Egypt currently?
Actually, the military-backed government is muzzling the press. It's a very sorry state of affairs because I feel we've reverted to pre-January 2011. It's a very dangerous time for journalists in Egypt. We've seen many journalists assaulted as they covered the pro-Morsi protests. A lot of them have been arrested and detained and are now facing military trials because of the emergency law that was in place. Journalists, along with other citizens, were arrested without charge. And the sad thing is that many journalists are now practicing self-censorship because they are intimidated or they fear that they might lose their jobs. And this is very dangerous indeed, this atmosphere. And, one of the gains of our revolution was the fact that there was a freer, more open press. And now we've reverted to the pre-January 2011 days. Under Mubarak, the media was a propaganda tool for the regime to consolidate their powers. And right now, we see even the independent channels, the so-called independent channels, glorifying the military. The military is a red line that you cannot cross in Egypt today. So this is very disappointing indeed.
Indeed, we certainly hope for things to take a better turn in terms of freedom of the press and freedom of expression, not just in Egypt, but in the Arab region as a whole. We actually got a question from Facebook to Ms. Tracey Shelton, asking her about the most important difficulties and hurdles that she faced as a journalist while covering the areas of conflict in the Middle East. So, Tracey, please respond to this question from our Facebook participant.
Yeah, I guess for me the daily danger is I spend a lot of time on the front lines, and so there's always a very dangerous situation and bombings and bullets flying everywhere. But for me, it's really important that if I'm going to write about this situation, I have to be there and I have to live it. And I find it, to me, what interests me a lot more is not so much the news story, but how people actually cope in that sort of situation. What is it like for these guys to just go from being a civilian to fighting on a front line and killing people and seeing people die in front of them? So for me, that's something that's really important, is that I get in there, stay with them, stay on the front line, camp out there for weeks or months. Same with families, local families. What is it like to live in the middle of a war zone? So there's that constant danger of just the kind of places or how far I'm willing to sort of push things to understand the situation and what situations I'm willing to put myself in. Of course, with Syria now, it's much more dangerous than before. The kidnappings of the kidnapping of journalists has just become out of hand this time. So it's this has become a completely different situation where sometimes it's just too dangerous to even go.
Excellent. And that brings us also to the point of risks. I was talking with Shahira about some of the risks that she, faced personally, professionally, as a result of doing her job as a journalist and a media person. I'd like to ask you the same question. What kind of risks have you actually faced while doing your own job as a correspondent, as a journalist, as a videographer? The personal and professional risks that you actually confronted or faced?
Yeah, well, I've had many close calls and many situations that I've found myself in that I've just thought, what am I doing here? But I guess the most extreme was in Libya. I was beaten up in a kidnapping attempt. I was sleeping in my hotel room at like 3 a.m, and some unarmed group broke into my room and tied me up, and they beat me quite badly. And I managed to escape from them by jumping from the balcony and running to a nearby hotel. And so that was the closest call that I've had. And so it does it does make you you question, it make you think sometimes, like, what am I doing? But I did it could have gone a lot worse than it did, but I did manage to get away, so I was quite lucky in that instance. And it's quite ironic, too, that was probably one of the most sensible, normal things that I've been doing in a long time, was sleeping in a hotel room. But, that was the turned out to be the most dangerous. But
Oh my God, definitely. I mean, I'm really thankful that, that things took a good turn with you, and fortunately you were safe. And it's really amazing to look at all of these different risks that you, as women journalists, face in your own career, ranging from having to quit your job because of taking a stance, as in Ms. Shahira's case, and ending with the other end of the spectrum of, just being at high risk to your own self and your own safety. I also wanted to touch on the point of harassment. Did you cover any incidents of, harassment against women, intimidation, violence? We know that a lot of this has been going on, unfortunately, in some of the conflict zones, especially in Libya and Syria, which you have been covering. Would you like to comment a little bit on this?
Yeah, definitely. I think as the society, violence in the society rises, violence against women in particular also rises too, because you have an unstable society. You don't have the stability of law enforcement, and people can get away with a lot more. And whether or not it's true, everyone's going to see you as more vulnerable when you're a woman and an easy target. So you do have to be a lot more careful. And as far as covering these stories of local women and what they've been through, some of it is just horrific, the kind of things that they've gone through. And it's just it's hard to understand, how a man is capable of torturing a woman or killing a woman, or even aside from the incidents of rape and things like this. It's just it's incredible to just realize that that's happening. But yeah.
In speaking also to some of the journalists and activists who have been covering especially Syria and Libya and being involved with them directly, many of them talked about helping the Syrian refugee women who lost their own families or husbands or fathers in the conflict, or women who have been raped or harassment victims. A lot of this has also been going on. Did you actually touch upon some of these areas or aspects of these severe conflicts in your own reporting and coverage?
Yeah, I've met many women who have terrible stories. Some had been arrested and tortured or abused in prisons. Many had lost their husbands, and even just the women, just in the families that I've stayed with in Syria. Just a normal average family. Their husband's out on the front line. They don't know if he's dead or alive. They've got no one to support them. There's no money. They've got to try and feed kids. I mean, just that normal everyday situation for women in a war zone like in Syria and like in Libya before is really difficult. And yeah, I think that's we look at the extreme cases and we concentrate on those, but just even everyday stuff is very tough for women.
Absolutely. And Ms. Shahira, you also mentioned that you did cover, did talk about virginity testing in Egypt and, other incidents. If you would like also to talk a little bit about some of the coverage that you have done, in exposing some of the incidents of violence or harassment that women have been facing or have been suffering from.
The virginity tests is just one example of how the state uses violence to intimidate women, to keep them away from protests, to keep them at home. But I'd like to tell you that, with the revolution, the fear barrier is now gone. So last January, when 17 women were sexually assaulted in Tahrir Square, the good thing that happened was a lot of them broke the silence. They spoke out. They reported it unashamedly in the media. They were not afraid of the stigma. Before the revolution, it would have been a really big shame to speak in public and actually say that this happened to you. But we saw, that this happened last January. They were unafraid and they were unashamed, and they all spoke out and felt that they could take matters in their own hands and fight back. And I thought that this is the change, this is wonderful. But sexual harassment in Egypt has reached very high levels. It was always happening before, but it has continued at unprecedented levels since. And the fact that women are speaking out now is the change. It gives me hope that, things will take a turn for the better and that they will fight back. a lot of NGOs have come up that are helping these women, like Harassment, like Tahrir Bodyguards, Fuad Watch. And, you know, women feel they're not alone, that they're no longer, you know, vulnerable, that they can actually fight back.
Absolutely. I think that breaking the barrier of fear has been the turning point for the Arab citizens in general and for Arab women in particular, especially with the iconic historic images of, you know, martyrdom and courage and bravery that we have been seeing. But I would like to just get a better sense of why there has been a surge or an increase in the incidence of violence and harassment against women, you know, in this part of the world and in Egypt. Do you have any explanation for why this may be the case?
I think that it's because of the desperation. Men, in particular, are frustrated. You know, the economy isn't doing well. A lot of them are jobless. And I think that this frustration, whether at the economic or social level, I think it translates into more violence. There was a lot of hope after the January uprising that things would be better, that their lives would improve. But when that didn't happen, I think it's all born out of frustration at the unmet expectations.
Right, and I think it's important you mentioned also that women are speaking up against some of these incidents. We have seen Samira Ibrahim, the courageous Egyptian woman who actually, took the case of virginity testing to court. And she, filed a claim against her, the person who actually did that. And, she took the case to the media and she became a public figure by exposing it. So I think it's important for women to speak up when such incidents happen.
That was the first crack in the impunity of the armed forces. I think it was very brave of her. She's from the south of Egypt and she's only 22 years old, and she actually told the world what had happened to her and the other female protesters. She was very courageous. She filed a lawsuit against the Supreme Council of the Armed Forces, and I actually got the first admission from a senior military general that they had carried out these tests. And I broke the story on CNN at the end of May, and Samira won the case, and the court ruling was that there will never again be military virginity tests performed in military prisons. So, that was the big change. And what I loved was as she walked out of court that day, the young revolutionaries walked behind her chanting, "Samira, raise your head high. You are more noble than those who did this to you." So, that was the change, that these young men actually supported her and walked behind her rather than feeling ashamed. She held her head high and she felt that she was, Absolutely. I think this is very important. We'll come back again to all of these important points right after this commercial break. Stay tuned.
بدأناه معكم وعهدناكم على أن نستمر بمزيد من المتعة والعروض الحصرية على قناتي زي ألوان وزي أفلام. زي ألوان هي أول وأكبر قناة مسلسلات عربية هندية في أمريكا. أضخم الإنتاجات، مسلسلات حصرية، ومع زي أفلام فأنتم على موعد مع مغامرة جديدة كل يوم لاكتشاف سحر بوليوود. تابعوا حصريا قناتي زي ألوان وزي أفلام الآن في أمريكا على ديش نتورك وسلينج تي في.
قشات ميديترينيان ماركت بإدارة سهر قشات وأولاده يرحبون بالجالية العربية والكلدانية. جميع أنواع المواد الغذائية، البان طازجة، الكرزات والبهارات الطازجة. داخل الأسواق مطعم ميديترينيان شيش كباب يقدم يوميا جميع أنواع الكباب، المقبلات العربية العراقية وصواني الكامبو المميزة. تفتح الأسواق من 8 إلى 9 مساء من الاثنين وحتى السبت، ومن 8 صباحا إلى 9 مساء يوم الأحد. تقع الأسواق على 32839 نورث ويسترن هايواي في مدينة فارمينغتون هيلز. لحوم حلال للجالية الإسلامية. لطلباتكم من المطعم call 248-538-7855. That is 248-538-7855. قشة ميديترينيان ماركت، خدمة متميزة ومعاملة راقية.
منظمة رحمة للإغاثة تعمل بجد وتفان بهدف خدمة الإنسانية، خصوصا في المناطق المنكوبة بسبب الأوضاع في سوريا، وتعمل أيضا في دول الجوار التي تستقبل اللاجئين السوريين وتقدم خدماتها الإنسانية للجميع دون أي تمييز. للتواصل مع المنظمة الهاتف رقم 248-990-4247 أو الموقع الإلكتروني rahmarelief.org.
أسواق زمزم الواقع على 24065 أورشاد ليك في مدينة فارمington هيلز ترحب بالجالية العربية والكلدانية. تنزيلات كبيرة على عموم المواد الغذائية في يوم الأربعاء من كل أسبوع. لا تنسوا فريش كاري اوت، جميع انواع المعجنات، وايضا صواني الكمبو المشكله والصمون الحار. لحوم حلال الجاليه العربيه والاسلاميه الملحمه باداره قصاب الجاليه المعروف سلوان جربوع. زوروهم على 24065 اورشاد ليك في مدينه فارمington هيلز او اتصلوا بهم على 248-476-0300. اسواق زمزم للمذاق عنوان لجميع طلباتكم، اتصلوا على 248-476-0300. اسواق زمزم للمعامله الراقية وكرم الضيافة عنوان.
This is Dr. Sahar Khamis. Join me on the third Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be discussing some of the most important current political, economic, and social issues in my program, The Bridge. On Radio Baladi, on America's Voice of the Arabs, WNZK 690 AM and WDMV 700 AM. Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Khamis, and with me this morning is Ms. Shahira Amin and Ms. Tracey Shelton, two prominent, experienced journalists talking about women breaking news and covering crisis in the Arab region. Ms. Shahira and Ms. Tracey, I would address the same question to both of you in turn, but I'll start with Ms. Shahira. What is the value of women reporting on the region? I know journalists, men and women, both have been doing their job in terms of covering the unfolding critical events in this important part of the world. But what do women journalists bring to the table that might be of different or added value, or maybe different angle or perspective, in your opinion?
I think that women do a great job because, they can cover women's issues better. They look at it from a different angle. They have a different take on things. I think they can relate better to other women. Women feel they're more comfortable perhaps telling another woman their story of rape, sexual assault. They feel more comfortable perhaps opening up to a woman journalist than they would with a male journalist. So I feel that, that there are issues that women can cover better, but that doesn't mean that women, should stay away from conflict zones. There are stereotypes that men perhaps should be out on the battlefield reporting where that's not a woman's place. I feel that women, have done just as good a job, if not a better job, reporting, and that they should not just limit themselves to covering women's issues, but they can also, report on financial issues, on wars. I hope that Tracey agrees with me.
Yeah, I'm going to move to Tracey because she indeed shattered the stereotype of women only covering women's issues by, being in some of the most critical and difficult, conflict zones in Libya and Syria. So would you like to address this point, Tracey? What do women bring to news coverage that might be distinctive and different?
Well, yeah, I would definitely agree that we do have access to this whole other world that male journalists can't access in many areas because it's so... the society is so strict. In many places, a male journalist just can't interview women or enter a home and really live with a family. And you don't only understand it from the women's point of view when you're living with this family and you become a part of their life, but you understand their dynamic with the men as well. So you understand the men better. You see how they interact with their wives and their kids, not just them on the front line. So I think even on my reporting on the front line, I do get, I do have access to a different side of these guys that male journalists don't really get access to. And also as a woman too, I think there's, when you get a male journalist on the front line, there's a bit of bravado around guys, you know, like, whereas with a woman, men can sometimes show a bit of a different side, a softer side. And, yeah, so that can also be a benefit. But, yeah, so I think for me, I very much enjoy having that extra access and that really broad spectrum of society, as well as the fighters and their personal lives.
Absolutely, and I think, I want to second what Ms. Shahira also said about women shattering the stereotype and proving that they can go into some of the most difficult, war zones and conflict zones, and indeed your own reporting has shown that definitely. So it's important for women to show that they can cover both, women's issues as well as public issues, as well as conflict zones, which is very important. And Ms. Shahira, if we were to talk about the future, looking forward, how do you actually see the future for women in the Arab region in general, and women who are in the field of media or journalism in the Arab world in particular?
Well, I feel that in our patriarchal, conservative societies, women have it tougher from a young age. Say if there is a family in a rural community and they can only afford to put one child at school, they would rather put the boy at school because they believe that he will become the bread earner. Even when there's a meal, and they can only afford, sometimes girls get the leftovers, daughters will get the leftovers. Very sad to say that, but it actually happens in some families. Because the women have it so tough, they become tougher and they fight. And that makes them stronger. The saying that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And they become fighters. And I've seen it. I've seen the women do things that men, are just too lazy to do in our region. And we saw how when the 2012 Constitution was being drafted, there was a provision linking women's rights to Sharia law. The women of Egypt staged a sit-in, and it was because of them, refusing to back down, refusing to go home, that this provision was removed from the 2012 Constitution. So I find, for instance, in Egypt, 1/3 of households are headed by women. They are out there, providing food for their families. And I believe that women are the future leaders in our region. They will become the future leaders because of the fact that they've had it tough and they're out there. For women journalists, it's a tough job, but the women are still out there reporting. For me personally, I feel that if I go and cover a pro-Morsi protest, I would become a target. Because they don't want the women there reporting, but it doesn't stop me. And it's not just me, but lots of other female journalists as well. So we will continue to do what we have to do. And I believe that, nothing will stop us.
Absolutely, and it's really great that you have this optimism in terms of the future of women, in covering the region, and also the future of women in the Arab region as a whole, because not very many people share this optimism, Ms. Shahira. Some people say, women have really, sacrificed, they paid the price, but now they're not getting the kind of gains that they were expecting from their bravery, from their martyrdom, from their courage. I don't know if you want to, just comment a little bit on this.
Just one thing. It's been exactly a year since, or maybe two, I'm not sure, time passes by very quickly, since the incident of Sitt al-Banet, the girl in the blue bra who was beaten and assaulted by soldiers. You saw the women's rallies right after that incident. The women of Egypt took to the streets saying that girls and women are a red line. They actually defied the guns of the security forces, the tear gas, and they were out there, just protesting and saying that they will not tolerate this kind of treatment. So the women are fighting back. I'm very optimistic, although the new constitution, the constitutional panel refused to have a provision with a quota system for women. We had a very low representation of women in the last parliament, just 2%, and we were hoping that there would be a quota system that would guarantee fairer representation of women. But without the quota system, I know that women will make it into parliament. They're very defiant, very determined, and adamant to play their role.
Absolutely, and we share your optimism, and we definitely hope for women in this part of the world to keep on marching and calling for their rights and playing an active role in the media sphere, in the political sphere, and in the social sphere. I'm afraid we're running out of time with today's show. I would like to thank my guests this morning, Ms. Shahira Amin and Ms. Tracey Shelton, two experienced, prominent journalists, for joining us this morning with Radio Baladi. This is your host, Dr. Sahar Khamis. Thank you all for listening, and thanks to our guests for participating. Thank you, and we'll see you again and hear you again soon in another show. Thank you.